All right, guys, welcome to the show. I have a big one for you. So we have officially the reaction from the Democrats' high-level meetings in terms of what to do with Biden. There's some devastating quotes coming out of there. You get the sense that they all know he's got to go, but they're too chicken shit to actually follow through and do the right thing and like show a united front to him and say, hey, dog, you're done here. So really interesting dynamic we'll talk about there. Later on, we have a expert, a doctor, and he went on NBC, and this guy's a Democrat, by the way, and he has a brutal diagnosis for Joe Biden. I felt pretty bad when we did that video the other day, speculating about whether or not Biden had mini strokes or is it Parkinson's and all that stuff. But that being said, when the evidence is as strong as it is, it's probably more irresponsible to not talk about stuff like that because he's the freaking president of the United States and he wants to run the country for another 4 years. So now it's not just assholes like me talking about this. We have a response from a doctor who's an expert. And again, I want to reiterate, he's a Democrat. Okay. Then we'll get to Jon Stewart's distraught reaction to Biden's implosion. We have AOC and Bernie. They weighed in. And boy, oh boy, do I have a lot to say about that. And then later on, we're going to expose the wretched Republican platform that just dropped. There's some interesting things in there and some interesting omissions, by the way. So everybody do me a big favor. Please subscribe to the channel. That helps out big time. That costs you absolutely nothing. A massive thank you to everybody who supports this channel on Patreon. If you'd like to support, that link's below. Deeply, deeply appreciate it. I don't talk to any advertisers, so you guys fund this show. And again, could not do it in any way, shape, or form without you glorious, lovely, beautiful people. All right, here we go. I need to give you this update because, of course, there's going to be a drip, drip, drip from now until Election Day of just how bad it's been. And the other thing is, we're probably going to get a lot of stories of things that have happened Biden's entire term in office that have been secret until now because of the fact that I think in Democrats' heart of hearts, they want him gone, right? Because they know he's dragging down the rest of the ticket and their asses are on the line. So look at this. This is amazing. This was reported by the Wall Street Journal. German officials, aware of Biden's fatigue at night, sought to accommodate the president by planning a June 2022 event with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz in the early evening. The informal event, and it was at a ski resort during the Group of Seven summit, was arranged as a confidential meeting on Ukraine in a relaxed setting. Biden didn't show up, and that surprised the chancellor and his aides. So instead, Secretary of State Blinken arrived and announced that Biden had to go to bed. So they moved the meeting earlier to accommodate Joe Biden, knowing, hey man, he's kind of old, late at night, he doesn't perform well. We'll move this earlier. Relaxed setting, etc. He still didn't show. Now, I'm going to add my 2 cents to this as well. The fact that Blinken said, he went to bed. No, I'm sorry. This is an instance where I'm sure Biden had a quote-unquote bad day. And in that scenario, he probably was not really coherent, could not function in any reasonable way, shape, or form. And his staffers knew he just can't do this today. And so Blinken goes and uses the excuse of, he had to go to bed. No, he was having an episode. That is overwhelmingly likely in this scenario. So buckle up. We don't know how many more stories like this are going to come out or how many more flubs and gaffes and mess-ups are going to happen between now and Election Day. But Biden's currently in the midst of a polling collapse, and it's only going to get worse the more stuff like this comes out. Okay, so we had the high-level Democrat meetings about, hey, what do we do about Biden? Look at this. This is from Axios. Just before House Democrats' Come to Jesus meeting today on President Biden's path forward, a smaller group of swing district Democrats held what sources described as a despondent gathering with, quote, actual tears. Democrats are literally crying behind the scenes, knowing how screwed they are and how Biden at the top of the ticket is likely going to drag everybody else down with him. They were crying. By the way, this is the most Democrat story I've ever heard in my life. Leave it to Democrats to passively view history and think of themselves as a passenger in the car as opposed to being a potential driver of the car and react with in an overly emotional way without doing anything about it. One member who attended today's Dem caucus meeting tells me, quote, The morale of the caucus is at historic lows. When asked if they'd compare it to a funeral like others have, they said, quote, "That's an insult to funerals." Oh. One Democrat came out of the meeting, and they said, hey, the media asked him, "Are you guys all on the same page?" And he goes, "Same page? We're not in the same book." So in other words, there are some people in these meetings who are like, it is what it is. There's no mechanism to get him out. We're going to support him. We don't want to add to the pylon. Let's go all in. Let's do the best we can with Biden. And then you have other people who are like, guys, who are we kidding? Who are we kidding? He might not even survive until election day. And what are we going to do? All blow up our own careers for the ego of this one man? So there is massive dissent within the ranks. There's no doubt about it. I found this very interesting, again, from Axios here. The dilemma bedeviling, nice word, House and Senate Democrats. If they call for Biden to resign and he stays, they risk paying a price if he wins. If they back him forcefully and he has another debate moment, they fear looking naive and complicit. So in other words, here's what they're all doing. Finger in the wind. Finger in the wind. How am I supposed to navigate this? I need to politic my way around it in a clever and crafty way. It hasn't even occurred to these people. They haven't even considered, what if I just take a principled stand and do what's right for the country and the party? What if I just tell the truth? That's not even in the realm of conversation to them. How embarrassingly pathetic are these people? There's not a single leader among them, y'all. Not a single leader among them. So then we got this. I'm told that Senators Michael Bennet, Sherrod Brown, and John Tester told colleagues in today's Democratic caucus lunch that they do not believe that President Biden can win the election. Now, since then, Michael Bennet has come out on CNN, and he said it in front of everybody. He said, look, this guy can't win. What are we doing here? So there are some people individually who have the courage, or, they've looked at their polling data and they're in a swing district and they know it might actually be beneficial to them to distance themselves from Biden. Whatever the reason is in these various scenarios, some people are stepping forward. And this is, Senate Democrats, which, the senators will have a little bit more of an impact, I think, than Congress people. Representative Mikey Sherrill says Biden should step aside. Quote, because I know President Biden cares deeply about the future of our country, I am asking that he declare that he won't run for re-election and will help lead us through a process toward a new nominee. So again, you're getting a lot of folks around the edges. What are we at now? Maybe 10 or 12 House Democrats saying it, 3 Democrats in the Senate saying it, and then you're also getting people who are sort of strongly hinting at it, but not outright saying it. So for a while there, it looked like, as people pointed out, including myself, the dam is breaking. There's a tsunami of Democrats now coming out saying it. But Biden came back so aggressively, basically letting them know, this isn't even in the realm of conversation. Only the Lord Almighty can get me out of this race. And it looked like, okay, maybe he is just going to white knuckle it all the way. And now we're back again to, he didn't quell anybody's fears, obviously. He's not capable of quelling their fears at this point, and Democrats see the polls in free fall. And so the conversation is going to keep happening. Now, by the way, I have a huge update for you in a little bit. You're going to see probably the biggest player to lend their voice in this debate. You had Hakeem Jeffries came out and said, I support Biden, I'm totally behind him. You have Chuck Schumer staying quiet, but implying like, hey, there's nothing I can do, right? He is who he is, and he's going to do what he's going to do. But maybe even a bigger voice in Democratic politics said something a little different. Look at this. Nancy Pelosi. Now, what did she say? Here we go.
Does he have your support to be the head of the Democratic ticket?
As long as the president it's up to the president to decide if he is going to run. We're all encouraging him to make that decision because time is running short. I think overwhelming support of the caucus. It's not for me to say. I'm not the head of the caucus anymore, but he's beloved. He is respected, and people want him to make that decision, not me.
He has said he has made the decision. He has said firmly this week he is going to run. Do you want him to run?
I want him to do whatever he decides to do.
So now you might hear that and say, well, she's sort of just being neutral and splitting the difference and saying, it's on him, right? You got to read in between the lines a little bit. She says he needs to make that decision. Time is running short. And it's like, wait, he already unequivocally made the decision. And her reaction to that is, yeah, that's nice. He needs to make the decision. Time is running short. So what that means is, I speak politician. I can decode this for you. What that means is, he's got to go. And we're trying to give him the cover now for it to look like he's going free of his own volition. Right? This was a conspiracy I had early on when Obama came out after the debate. And Obama was like, basically backing up Joe 100%. I talked to Crystal about it, and I was like, look, if I put on my Game of Thrones hat and Machiavellian hat, you can look at this and say, if they were trying to remove him, one of the things they would do is publicly say, oh, we're with him. He's wonderful. He's been a great president. It's something to consider, but it's on him. So they show him support to then make it look like if he steps down, hey, man, that was totally on him. He wasn't forced out. He made the decision himself because he did the right thing. So what's funny, and again, we'll do a segment on this later, Nancy Pelosi is more in line with the left here than AOC and Bernie Sanders. Now, she could have came out and said he's got to go, right? But we all know Nancy Pelosi is she's more of a political creature than that, right? And so this is as close as you're ever going to get to her saying, yeah, he's got to go. It reminds me of, somebody tweeted this also. Remember that scene from The Sopranos when they were talking about what to do with Jackie Jr.? And Tony says, whatever decision you make, just know what's more important than the actual decision is that you act quickly. And this was about whether or not to whack Jackie Jr. And so say, whether or not you make the decision, whichever way you go, you got to act quickly. That's like do it, but I'm not going to be the one responsible for saying that he's got to go out directly. You need to interpret that from what I'm saying, and that's kind of what Pelosi's hinting at here. All right, we got more. Polls have since come out, y'all. New polls have since come out. I made this point on the show the other day, knowing that it was a super hot take, and a lot of people wouldn't agree with it. But when we were on vacation, you can go back and check. I forget which exact video it was, but I said, look, at this point, Kamala Harris is going to poll better against Trump than Biden, and Hillary Clinton even would. Well, would you look at that? Hillary Clinton in a head-to-head, 43% to Trump's 41%. In this same poll, they also did Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is also beating Trump in this poll. So that's how far Biden has fallen with his cognitive abilities. Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton, who without a doubt to the majority of voters, are more unlikable than Biden. People now just don't think Biden has the juice. He just can't continue. He's not fit anymore. And so now Hillary and Kamala are both better options in terms of electability than Joe Biden is. So vindication, but, it's a dark kind of vindication. I don't wish this is the place we were, but we are here. Okay, more. So one of the points people have been making consistently, myself included, is, guys, look at the polling of generic Democrat versus Trump. Every time the generic Democrat crushes Trump. I shared a poll the other day from November of 2023, so not that long ago. And that had a generic Democrat 6 points up on Trump. We got a new poll here from Emerson. This one just came out July 2nd. Generic Democrat 53%, Trump 47%. Now, there's a lot of poll denial going on right now among Blue MAGA. And it's a shame, right? Because if you look at a poll like this, obviously the best strategy moving forward from an electability perspective is to get the world's most generic Democrat and throw him up there against Trump. Also, by the way, if you go with a generic Democrat, Trump doesn't have much ammunition on them. They're starting from scratch in terms of what are their scandals, what's their history, what's their voting record, what can I dig up on this person, right? So when I think generic Democrat, I think of like J.B. Pritzker, for example, or I think of like Andy Beshear in Kentucky. I mean, you got a goofy nerd in Beshear, you have a big beefy boy in J.B. Pritzker, and I have no doubt they would easily defeat Trump. Easily. So, and by the way, if Biden does step down and somebody replaces him, I'm like 80 to 90% certain it's going to be Kamala, which again, Kamala's better than Biden, but she also is the second weakest candidate of the available options, I would say, right? Generic Democrat, you could also say Gretchen Whitmer. Generic Democrat, you could also say, and this guy's my favorite, by the way, in terms of his governing record, he's actually to the left of Bernie Sanders, Tim Walz, the best governor in the country. Josh Shapiro, right? So people are just going to deny this fact here, but this is a super important fact. This is a super important fact if your main concern is we got to beat Trump. All right, this is wild. Representative Mark Takano, a Democrat of California, told House Democrats in private meeting he saw a poll that had Biden losing his district despite winning it in 2020 with 62% of the vote. So the polls are in such a free fall at the moment that states which were considered pretty safe Democrat are now in question. Very fascinating, by the way, that politics makes for such strange bedfellows that now me and the Pod Save bros and Matt Iglesias are on one team, and then you got like AOC and Bernie on the other. It's insane. It's insane. So look at this. A new survey by the Welcome Pack. Our survey reveals a clear preference among Democratic primary voters. They favor allowing convention delegates to select a new nominee they believe to be electable over President Biden remaining on the ballot by a 55-40 margin. 15 points over water to say you got to replace him. That's crazy. Polls range from 70% to 80% that say he doesn't have the cognitive ability to go on. Of the country, not Democrats. The country, 70 to 80%. Okay, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? All right, more. This really highlights the heart of the problem. Okay, new AARP poll of Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin, in order for a Democrat to win the presidency, they 100% have to win Wisconsin. It's one of those like swing states that's not really that much of a swing state, right? It's like likely Democrat type stuff. If you're going to win the White House as a Democrat, you have to win Wisconsin. Look at this. Trump is now up 6 points on Biden in Wisconsin. Now, at the same time, Tammy Baldwin, the Democratic senator, is up 5 points on the Republican opponent. This is a point I made to Crystal and many others. I think we might actually be looking at a situation where if Biden stays on, Trump can have a victory over Biden, but Democrats overperform in the down ballot races. Because again, generic Democrats poll really well. People don't like Republicans. They hate the overthrowing of Roe versus Wade. They hate the election denialism and the extremism. And so the top of the ticket could be miserable, and it's possible that drags everybody else down and the Democrats just get wiped out. But I think it's also within the realm of possibility, and this poll is good evidence of it, that Biden loses and loses in an electoral college landslide, but Democrats perform way better than Biden down ballot. But by the way, I should also point out, they don't think that. The elected Democrats do not believe that. They believe Biden is dragging all of them down, which to one extent or another he is. It's just how much can they outperform him is the question, right? But they don't agree with my intuition on this. So that makes them more likely to want to be like, you got to go, bro. You got to go, you got to go, you got to go. Now, on the other hand, they also have that authoritarian fall in line impulse of like, hey, it's his turn. He's already the nominee. What am I going to do? So, you got competing interests here, pulling them in different directions. But this poll is astonishing. Biden down 6 to Trump, but the Democrat beating the Republican in the Senate race by 5 points. You're seeing the same thing, of course, like Ohio. That's gone. Definitely going to go Republican. But Sherrod Brown is leading by 5 points. He's a Democratic senator. So it really is, Biden is uniquely weak. That just is the reality. Just to put in perspective for you, the current position that we're in. Look at this. The Real Clear Politics poll average on this day in prior campaigns. In 2020, Biden was 9 points up on Trump this very week before the election then. 9 points. By the way, he barely won. He won by about 4 percentage points, and it was only a couple tens of thousands of votes in the Rust Belt that saved him. But he was up by 9 points. All right, in 2016, Hillary was up by about 5. We know what ended up happening there. In 2012, Obama was up 2.5. He ended up winning. In 2008, Obama was up 4.2. He ended up winning. In 2004, Kerry was up 2. He ended up losing. But look at this. This is the first time in 24 years that the Republican nominee has led after the July 4th holiday going into conventions. In 24 years. Usually the Democrats have an advantage in the popular vote, and Republicans in recent years have had an advantage with the Electoral College, right? But Biden is even losing the popular vote. He's even losing the popular vote. He's down about 3 on average right now to Trump. In 2020, at this point, he was 9 ahead. Another poll came out. There are 6 states that moved toward Trump in the Electoral College ratings. 6 states. 6 states that shifted more in that direction. Now, again, I should point out here, remember those polls I showed you the other day? There was like an outlier poll or two that had, actually, Biden surged a little bit in the polls after the debate. And I told you guys that's a totally bogus narrative because, number one, they're outliers. Number two, to the extent anything like that is even close to happening, we know why. The Democrats are far outspending the Republicans in ads in these swing states. The Democratic money's going to dry up because it is drying up quite literally. And the Republicans got a war chest that's colossal, and they're going to unleash on Biden. So what happens when the media narrative catches up to Biden? He does more gaffes, and the Republican spending catches up to the Democratic spending and inevitably surpasses it. What happens? Well, we're looking at it right here. 6 states have moved more towards Trump. And then finally, I'm going to give you guys this. So Biden's last line of defense here, and really what he's banking on. Now, it could be a bluff. It could not be a bluff. I guess we're going to find out. But his last line of defense is mutually assured destruction. In other words, if you guys don't let me remain the nominee and you try to plot against me and scheme against me, I'm going to take all you down with me. So this is in semaphore. President Biden hasn't made much progress convincing Democrats he's still equipped to take on Donald Trump since their debate, but he's made headway on another front, making clear he will take the entire party down with him if they don't stop trying to replace him. In a letter to Congress on Monday, just as members were arriving for the first time since the debate to potentially share their grievances, Biden warned, the question of how to move forward has been well aired for over a week now, and it's time for it to end. In a phone interview on Morning Joe, around the same time we covered this already, he denounced the elites who he accused of trying to push him out. His most combative language yet. If any of these guys think I shouldn't run against me. Go ahead, announce for president, challenge me at the convention. The message coming from the White House is clear. Biden isn't going anywhere, and if you come after him, you'll be the one who gets blamed for undermining party's general election chances. So guys, that's the important point, right? What Biden is doing is setting it up so that if he stays in the race, he's very, very likely to lose. But he will turn around after the election, and he will point fingers at everybody who didn't fall in line and do rah-rah cheerleading for him. Right? And he'll say, it's this person telling me to step down, this person saying I wasn't fit. You know, it's all you guys. You kept doing and you made a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you helped drive the narrative that made my numbers go down more, and so it's on you. So in other words, he's going to take zero responsibility. Zero. And this is the mutually assured destruction that we're talking about here. This is the mutually assured destruction. For one man to take down the entire party because of his ego, who does that remind me of? Who does that remind me of? Oh, that's right. It's Trump as the head of the Republican Party who led to a massive underperformance for Republicans in every election since 2016. He's like, I don't care. I'm the guy. Fuck the down ballot races. Fuck it if my candidates are not more popular than generic Republicans in these races. I'm all in. Hop on board or I'm going to come after you. Very Trumpian. Just like the call into Morning Joe is very Trumpian. Just like the fact he's wearing bronzer now, very Trumpian. Just like the fact he's going after elites when he's the king elite. That's exactly like Trump. All right, there you have it. There are your updates. So it went from, oh my God, there's so much pressure he might actually drop, to Biden fighting back, trying to quell fears and be aggressive and say, I got this, to, for a day or two, the Democrats sort of quieted down. They let Biden, do his bull in the China shop routine. And then now, with this new slate of polls coming out, we ramped right back up again. And Biden's like, the chatter must end. And everybody's like, no, the chatter is not ending. The chatter is actually getting stronger. More coming out in a drip fashion. Pelosi said what she said. So it's a tense situation, to say the least. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.